reactions to conditions and circumstances that surround them. They struggle because of unfulfilled desires. They feel the lack of things. They are bound by ill health. They fear the future because of the past. So the struggle goes on incessantly. Now, the large mass of people in the world today are doing this. And in fact, struggling has come to be a habit with most people. And when they are struggling, they have lost that which is real within themselves. Struggling is always something towards outside themselves. Therefore, they are reacting to conditions. And by reacting to those conditions, they begin to struggle, unaware of the fact that they have power and dominion over all things. Now, when we begin to analyze the condition of the mind under this continuous struggle, we find that it is full of negativeness, which means only one thing: frustration. If we struggle with ill health, if we struggle with burdens, struggle against any condition, we only create a greater burden upon ourselves because of our minds being filled with the effects of our struggle. Therefore, incapable of true direction because we are unaware of cause. Now let us analyze this deeply so that we can see how to act with direction. If we rebel against anything, we struggle with it. This is reaction from without. If we are controlled by our conditions and circumstances, we have lost our God-given power of dominion over all things. Now you will see clearly that struggling is a negative condition. Supposing now that you were in water, in deep water, and you were not able to swim, and you found yourself floundering, you begin to struggle in the water, and what is the first thing that happens to you? You drown, of course, because you struggle in such a way without any direction of any kind, and consequently you sink. That's exactly the same as it is in the world. You are sinking through your struggling in a world that you do not understand. But if you begin to realize the great truth of that central power within oneself, you will see then that there is no need to struggle. When one learns to swim, there is confidence, and to make the accurate strokes in swimming and able to swim in deep water or shallow water. The same thing is with you when you learn the law. This law of the infinite being that is expressing itself through each and every one of us, and we see this life that is creative in itself, that is all power in itself. When this consciousness in mankind realizes that all is spirit, there is nothing else but spirit, even the substance that is seen is spirit, and the animating power within is the consciousness in that spirit. Power of the Master is nothing more than a realization of this truth. A realization of the truth where the Master becomes aware of himself as the ruling factor in everything. He becomes that center around which everything revolves. and he sees that everything does revolve round himself. And therefore, he is the central point and has that power of direction because he's aware that the power within him is creative. If you are not then a proficient swimmer and you go into deep water, first thing you find is that you sink. The same thing applies to you in your daily life. If you are not aware, if you are not proficient in your expression of the truth, you also sink. You struggle. And the more you struggle, the more you intensify your conditions. Just the same as the drowning man, the more he struggles, the quicker he drowns. On the other hand, if we understand the cause of our condition, we would not rebel, but would work from within, knowing that the presence was there, and that in the presence there is no such thing as fear, or lack, or ill health, therefore no need to struggle. If ye knew in yourself, realize this tremendous truth, that there can be no sickness, no ill health, no loss of power, nothing that is detrimental to the human being whatsoever existing in the present. And when you know yourself to be the present, you establish that in your own consciousness. And the individual consciousness then begins to express itself outwardly because you are the central point in everything. And whatever the consciousness begins to express, so does the body and circumstances take on. Remember that there is no power external to you greater than the power within you. And when you recognize, which the truth is, I and the Father are one, and this power is infinite in nature, only infinite to you according to your awareness of it. If your awareness of it is just as much, you will beginning to swim, and you begin to struggle, and you begin to drown, and you call for help. If your awareness is just that, you will only have that much. But if you can stand on both feet, with your arms outstretched, looking upwards with confidence, knowing that all that is mine is thine. The picture of the initiation, where the three steps in the initiation. One is a person kneeling on the ground, head down. The next is the same person standing up with his head forward towards the ground. The third is the person with his hands stretched out, looking up. That is then the three initiations, the beginning of the understanding, where you bow to this wonderful truth. You are amazed by it, in wonderment. Then you begin to understand it. You rise upon your feet, ready to act with it. And when you begin to practice with it, it gives you confidence. And when that confidence is supreme, then you look forward with complete faith and understanding. There is never any looking back. You will learn that by pure action from within, we can set in motion ways and means to accomplish without struggle, knowing well But when we begin to know the understanding, the three principles, or the 3 points of the law, and in the first place, great mighty intelligence created all things, involves itself in its own creation, and with it establishes its own law, which becomes immovable, indestructible, and it can be neither affected by angel or man. The second phase of the law is this, that this consciousness, this intelligence that is active in the universe will respond to man's consciousness and will create for him also, according to what he thinks, good or bad. That is his responsibility. Then the third phase of the law is the true nature of God himself being love, supreme. The individual recognizes this great truth, and instead of looking outward, he turns back and looks within. Just as the prodigal son turned to the Father. And whenever we find that, we see that divine love that overcomes all conditions, and we stand before him complete as he makes in his own image and likeness. With this understanding, there is freedom. So that is what I call pure action, which alone brings results through understanding. While reaction to things external is only a degree of misunderstanding. If you go to sleep at night, happy or sad, depending upon success or failure, you will know that you are only reacting to your conditions. But if, on the other hand, you go to sleep, understanding the law of creation, practicing it, then while you sleep, the Lord is preparing things for you. The higher intelligence will then begin to take a firm action in your affairs, a firm action in your affairs. How many of you then go to bed at night, think now, happy or sad according to your successes or failures? If you go to bed at night unhappy, it's because of your failures, and very often happy according to your successes. You are buoyed up because of these things. Don't you see you're on the seesaw, up and down, backwards and forwards in the pendulum? But if you go to sleep recognizing the law, and this is what you should think of, this true law that exists within yourself, because you were created in his image and likeness, you carry inherent within yourself that divine law that exists throughout the whole universe, that neither man nor angel can destroy. That law is there for you. Whatever your consciousness becomes aware of, so in that state of understanding, you'll produce. So the intelligence will take a firm hand in your affairs. You will perhaps not find immediate results, but be assured that things are shaping. Your mind will take on a new aspect as your experiences become different, and a real start is made. Blessed are the poor, for they shall inherit the earth. The opportunity to those within themselves a desire to create. If you look for immediate results, this makes the mind unstable and double-minded. You begin to demonstrate and then you begin to doubt whether your demonstration will be true or not. And leads us often into deep waters because the simple reason is this, that you do not understand the true law of creation. And in any way, what are you demonstrating anyhow? Are you going to try and prove God to yourself? That can never be a demonstration in any person's life, because that is a negative way of looking at it. You're putting God relative to yourself, putting God as something outside yourself so that you can say, God, do this for me. But if you realize that the creative power is within yourself, and knowing that this law, the second phase of the law is this, that the intelligence will act for you, whether you desire things that are good for you or bad for you. This intelligence will produce them for you. But if you are on the seesaw of fear and faith, you will be on the pendulum, swinging backwards and forwards, not knowing where you are. You will perhaps not find immediate results, but be assured that the thing is taking place. If you know the law to be infallible, results are sure to come. The motto is, be happy in your doing, knowing that the presence is working for you. Whatsoever I see my Father doing, so do I in like manner. That is what the Master. If you can understand this, then there is pure action, which is created. His whole theme was based upon love thy neighbor as thyself. Everything he did was not for himself, but for others. Everything God does is not for himself, but for everyone. He does not need to do anything for himself because he's complete in himself. And if you are the image and likeness of God, you must have that belief also. Being complete in yourselves, then whatever you do, you will do for others. And what you do for others, you do for yourself. Whatsoever you do unto one of these, so you have done unto me. It is difficult for the mind in trouble to discern for itself the difference between pure action and reaction. All things external to the self must be relative to the self, and what is relative can have no power of its own except that the self gives power to it. And this can only be done by fearing and struggling, which means frustration. I know how difficult it is for people in trouble to discern the difference of reacting to the condition and pure action. It takes time to sit down, quieten the mind, get a grip on oneself, and begin to discern what the mind is doing, where it is moving and how it is moving, what thoughts are passing through it, what thoughts you seem to grasp or grasp at, what thoughts you begin to fear, what thoughts you begin to have faith in. This is discernment of the mind that is unstable. But immediately you begin to realize that discernment is necessary, then your mind will become calm and peaceful, will slow down. You'll be watching what is passing through it. Then you will know what you are creating or what is taking place in your own mind. And when you have done that, then you begin to realize your own creative power. And the ascendancy of the consciousness takes hold of oneself. In this realization that it is the creative power existing and begins to create purely by pure action from itself. And first of all, it says, peace, be still. And there's a calm comes over the mind. Even a calmness will come over the world if everyone could see that. But over the self, this calmness comes and the mind is still. Then you begin to say, what should I fear? When the Lord and I are one. Then you begin to create your own mind. To dissolve these thoughts of fear. Bring harmony and peace into your soul. Then you call in the great mighty intelligence to prepare for you. You recognize at once that there is one greater than yourself. I am myself, the Father within me, the doer the work. I and my Father are one. The Father is greater than I. And the recognition of this greater one, in which you begin to act together, bring about that which is necessary in your life, then truth prevails. Things take shape. Whatsoever you ask in my name, so it shall be done unto you. Fear and faith are on the same yardstick. We measure with both. Job said, what I fear came upon me, and this has been proven by millions of others. We create ignorantly with fear and faith. Unfortunately, we create more with fear than with faith because of the emotion attached to fear. So we create ignorantly with both fear and faith. What is your faith? Have you ever asked yourself that question? What is your faith? Then you will know if your faith is based upon something that's real or something that is illusionary. If your faith is based upon something outside yourselves, then it's an illusion. But faith based upon that which is real within oneself. That the creative power of God and the creative power in you is one and the same, linked together, individualized for your own benefit. But unfortunately, most people fear things, therefore they create most things in fear. What I fear came upon me. How I see that every day of my life. People come to me full of fear with regard to the troubles. Some people, old, perhaps, aged, with a very few years to go in this world. They're full of fear. They're religious, but the religion hasn't done much for them. They're still full of fear and they do not know the truth, whether they will live at all. first thing they fear is death. They're afraid to die. Their troubles are uppermost in their mind because they know that the trouble may cause their death, but they are afraid to die. And the fear of death adds to their trouble enormously. Immediately I take the fear of death away from them. The face begins to clear. I have known many a person in this world who has been sentenced to death by the medical profession, saying, you've got 6 months to live, you've got 2 months to live. Time being, there was a terrible shock to the individual. But after the individual gets settled down, gets things properly in his mind, recognizing their proper place in his mind, he begins to say to himself, well, if death is, I'm going to enjoy myself during the last 2 months of my life. And he forgets all about his trouble. He forgets about his death. All he's engaged in now is to enjoy himself. After he goes out to enjoy himself, the end of 6 months, he's still alive. He wakes up to the fact that he should have been dead 4 months ago. So he still goes on. Another year goes past, and he's still alive. He wakes up again and says, still I'm alive. Now he thinks, how is this? I should have been dead now. Yes, nearly 18 months ago. I'm still living. The reason why is this, the simple reason that he forgot all about his trouble. He forgot all about death. He went out to enjoy himself, and naturally, nature did her own work without him. Nature is kind. She's beautiful. She's wonderful. If we are unaware of the truth of our being, then we are living in the pendulum of both fear and faith. We are swinging backwards and forwards according to our reactions to the external world. But if we understand the law of life, we remain at the fulcrum. We are aware of both fear and faith and what they are. Therefore, we understand the cause of our struggling, and our struggling ceases. You struggle in faith, you struggle in fear. But you never struggle when there is this pure action that comes from knowing the truth of your being. I am a father of one. I have not yet completely comprehended that tremendous statement. It unfolds in your mind. You wake up one morning and you will say it and have a greater meaning for it. And you think you have found the completeness of it. But the next morning, another great vista of the same thing will appear before you, and this will go on continuously because of the infinite nature of the Spirit within you, continually unfolding glory after glory. This unfoldment will never cease, but few understand. The majority of people are searching for what we call selfish sensations. There's of little value to them. There are only a few people in the world who really grasp the truth. Jesus had 12 disciples, and even some of them denied him. Peter, before the cock crows thrice, shall have denied him twice. When the individual begins to see the object external to himself and the subjectivity within himself, he will see that this subjectivity moves outwards to the object. If the individual is unaware of the presence as himself, then there is a reaction to the external, often in a negative way, and this acts from within outwards. Therefore, you see, when the individual is unaware of the presence within himself, and he moves to the object external to himself, there is a reaction from the object to himself. And if he's not aware of the presence within himself, then he reacts to this condition in a negative way. But if he, being aware of the presence within himself, and recognizing this condition, he does not react to it in a negative way, but knows at once, I have been given dominion over all things. My Father and I are one. I am the created principle of God. All power has been given unto me in heaven and on earth. All is spirit substance, which molds and forms according to the spirit consciousness within. The intelligence that is the active principle inherent in all creation responds to the consciousness of man. Responds to my consciousness as well. Therefore, God and I are one. My thoughts then become pure action, directed towards the subject or object. And I'm no longer swinging on the pendulum of fear and faith. I'm at the fulcrum, where at the top, where you watch the movement, when the pendulum flows outwardly, then flows away in this direction, and in that direction, and in this direction. Then you are watching carefully this movement taking place, knowing what the presence, you will notice, entirely different. For within the presence there is everything, because from within itself it expresses everything outward. The presence acts from within itself outwardly, but does not react to the thing. It itself creates, having dominion over all things. And man is made in the image and likeness of the presence, with the same dominion over all things. Is the presence afraid of the things it creates? No, of course it's not. But you are. You're afraid of your own creations. Why? Because you don't know you created them. The greatest amongst you is the servant of all. When the Master said this to his disciples, he had been explaining the law. Yet they were still unable to understand the full meaning of his words. He meant the servant of all within. This servant is the presence that knows all things, knows how to produce all things perfectly. What we have to do is to love with all our hearts, so that the law fulfills itself, and what we seek for, so shall it be unto us. We cannot get away from the law that is paramount in God. Because if it was not for this law of love, for this power of love, the universe could not exist as one whole. This law is inherent in everything that God has created. This law is adamant. and can neither be affected by angel or man. You see this wonderful story when we read the prodigal son. Here is the prodigal son. He goes to his father and he says, I want my inheritance. And he goes away and he spends his inheritance. He wants his share of his father's goods. So his father gives him the share. But he goes away. And he spends this share. And when it's all spent, he found he's got nothing. So he comes back to the father's house. Repentant. Father sees him a long way off. Goes to meet him. He does not chastise him. He did not say to him, you are a bad son. But he puts his arm around his shoulder, his neck, and he kisses him. And he brings him back into the house. And he sits down at the table and he feasts once more, partakes the father's table now forever. Because not only he shares, but he finds that his share now can never be expended. It goes on to infinity. Now, if you are like the prodigal son, thinking you just have a share in the father's house, that share will soon go by, will soon be wasted and finished. But if you continue to eat and feast at the Father's table, you will realize that that share means eternity. Sometimes there is others who object to see a prodigal son sharing the Father's goods and making merry with them. Find that the elder son would not go into the house because of the music and noise. When he found that his younger brother had come back, then he remonstrated and said, why, I've been with you all this while. I've done this and I've done that. I have obeyed your commands, and yet I can't even have a kid to make merry with my friend. The father comes around and says, all that is mine is thine. He didn't know either that all was his. Although he thought he was in the Father's house because he bade him all the time and obeyed his commandments all the time, and thought he was the good fellow, the good boy that the Father would bestow all his goods upon him just because he was good. But that is not the way, because in James it says, if you are in any way defective in wisdom, ask God, and he will give without reproach. But you must ask in faith, never doubt. Do you think then that God, being a God of love, would hate one of his children and love another? Could he be a God of love if he hated one and loved another? You are not a loving person if you hate one and love another. You cannot be. But God is perfect in himself. He's flawless. It's impossible for there to be any flaw in the creative power of God. Therefore, that lies in the central point. It is within oneself And you change. The Master said it clearly and distinctly when they asked him the question, which is the greatest of the laws? He says, love the Lord thy God with all thy strength, with all thy mind, with all thy soul. Love thy neighbor as thyself. When you fulfill this, you fulfill all the other laws. But if we harbor hate, jealousy, fear, and the like, we break the circle. We become our own enemy. One great truth that should be paramount in our minds is that which made the Master the greatest figure of all time. I and the Father are one. If you realize then what the Father is, and you are one with him, then you must act up to that, or try and translate the absolute into your daily living. If it made him what he is, it can do the same for us if we realize its true meaning. This is the transforming power in us all. It turns our base thoughts into loving thoughts, our negative and limited thoughts into faith and understanding that can move mountains. I am the Father of one. When you go about with this, think what it means. Say it often to yourself, think what it means. Continuously think in your mind how much it means to you. And as it begins to take hold of your consciousness, you see how wonderful it is. So many different aspects will rise to your mind. I am the Father of one. Why should I fear? I am the Father of one. I know this is the law of God. That same light of the Father, as the Master called him, brings him nearer to us and enables us to discern the cause within ourselves. For we produce that which we gaze upon. If we gaze upon the objective world with fear, so shall we produce. If we gaze upon the Father, the omni-creative power seated upon the throne of love within, we shall create that which is perfect and acceptable to him, who created us in his own image and likeness. That which is acceptable to God only remains permanent. All else will be dissolved away. Even if in our ignorance we try to retain. In this way I am satisfied that in the end, as in the beginning, all is perfect. And it must be now, if we can realize how else can it be. A perfect God. A perfect. Trouble with us, a majority of people, we do not understand the law of transition, the law of change. And when we see this law of change taking place, we think it is evil. We say there is decay, there is death. But if we knew the law of transition, that nature is always unmaking something to make something else. She's also always undoing something, build something else out of that which he is undoing. And that the law of change means a law of progression, unfolding. And above this law of change, there is That is the law of the individual, which is above the law of change, which the individual can act upon this law of transition and form for himself what he desires. But when he knows the law of change, he will recognize that the law of change may often take place within himself. For instance, if you have a lot of poisonous material in your body, then you go on to a properly balanced diet, whereby you try to eliminate most of the poisons. First of all, you will feel the body within racks, stretching this and pains come here and pains there, and so forth, and because you do not understand what's taking place, you become fearful, and you drop what you're doing straight away. You never get any results. You do not understand the law of change, the law of transition. Nature is tearing down some old material builds up beauty. If you do not understand the law of transition in your own lives, then you will react negatively to most things in your life. This is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The tree of life is true. It's life itself. It's perfect in itself. It itself creates only perfect things. Tears down all things, eliminates them completely, and builds up anew. Being perfect in itself, it tries to make everything as perfect as itself. That's its nature. Love is dynamic, is creative, without the necessity of an object. It is immortal. It is life, and life is creative and forms. Yet by it all forms are created. To understand creation, then we must understand form. And through form we arrive at the source of creation, because we are creation in form. And through form you gain all your experiences that enables you to realize that the life in form is the same as the life that is form. The life that I am in this form is the same life that is formless, blood holy. That life is not affected by this form. But that life can act in this form and recreate and rebuild this form, provided I am aware of it. Every night when I go to bed, I rebuild my body. The great secret of youth. To rebuild your body after the day's work is done. You lie awake for a little while, thinking of the creative principle, thinking of the law of transition, the law of change, the law of the individual, thinking of life itself, knowing what it is, seeing that life in you is one with the life that is formless. I am eternal in God. And again, set the intelligence in movement, rebuild my body, reconstruct it, dissolve all these conditions away. You are my servant, as you are God's servant, because I am the Father of God. And if you can realize this great truth, you will find that not only in your own body, but in circumstances, things will change. When the life is realized, it must be stripped of all personal whims, personal viewpoints. We must not be caught up in the opinion of what it is. This is limitation, because even the greatest idea you can have of life is but a limitation. Freedom comes as your consciousness becomes wider and wider, for the presence expresses itself in the proportion to the conscious awareness of the unlimited nature of the presence, understanding that there is no beginning and no end. It is everything, and it is whole and beyond the comprehension of the human mind. Nevertheless, it is through the human mind that the presence expresses itself. This is the great truth of the greatest and the smallest, and the smallest in the greatest. We must realize that everything that we can do, God does also. What I see my Father doing, I do likewise. The reward for this awareness is beyond price and cannot be classified with any other effort whatsoever. The awareness and mental poise resulting from our understanding is permanently established in us. Nothing in heaven or earth can deprive us of our unity. I and the Father are one, through which all is possible. There is no degree of material wealth, no degree of earthly power, no intellectual attainment that compares with this living satisfaction. Think it over. Practice it. See what it does. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and the right use of that kingdom. All shall be added unto you. All students of truth can see this was the mind of the Master, and Paul never expressed a greater command than that the mind be in us that was in Jesus Christ. The dominant thought in the Master's mind was his oneness with the Father. I and the Father are one. If your life is commonplace, filled with fears, apprehensions, negativeness, you will discover it is because you are not aware that the Father and you are one. If you are the victim of mass teaching, of some God external to yourself, whom you have to pray to beseech him to come to your aid, and when you beseech him and you doubt whether he will come or not, then you will never be able to come out of your commonplace life. Many have read book after book trying to find the truth, but they will still be as far away as ever till they realize the great truth of the Father and I are one. If I could blaze this truth in letters of fire to dazzle your sight, I will do so. For so important is this realization. It is the greatest truth that man could ever discover. I and the Father are one. Many who write books on truth have not yet found the simple truth themselves. Consequently, books of this nature could only be a hindrance and not a help, because they encourage limp thinking. I have told you before, not to deny any condition, but to deserve its cause. Then bridge the gap in your mind between the Father and yourself by realizing your oneness. Every time you realize this truth, so does it become more firmly established in you, so that in time nothing can assail you from without. Much of the teaching in mental science tells you to control your thinking. It is not so much the controlling of your thinking, for this is a form of contraction. It is the raising of your individual consciousness into its source, and thus realizing the unity of God and man, thus unfolding the consciousness